Yeah, up next we got Larry Elder. You know what time it is. Let's get it.
What were the basic arguments you made in your post that was critical of the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yeah, well, basically, first I just start off by looking at the core claim of the Black Lives Matter movement that police more readily shoot black people or that black people are disproportionately shot by the police. Um, and the statistics on that are pretty clear actually. So about 30% to 100% more whites are shot each year by police. But the Black Lives Matter movement says, well, there's 6 times as many whites in the country, so there should be 6 times as many whites shot by police if police are shooting people in an unbiased way, basically making that decision when they need to use lethal force in an unbiased way. But this is a profoundly dishonest argument, or at least a profoundly uninformed argument. So I basically lay that out. So I sort of review that police are only supposed to use lethal force when their life is at risk or the life of someone nearby is at risk. And black communities often have much higher rates of violent crime. So of course, police will encounter more situations while they're policing those communities, which need the protection of the police. Will they'll encounter people who pose that sort of risk.
Yeah, which that is very understandable. You'll be on edge because you know that the energy and environment that you're in. It's like when you go out with your friends and you know where you at. Obviously you're on edge, you're watching your movement because you know you're not in a regular normal area where nothing really happens. Like you know what I mean? Like when cops go to patrol certain areas, we know it's like really any crime if it happens. You see them, they're chilling. But when you know it's a hostile area, come on, man. Come on. Come on. It's only logic. Come on.
More often. And then and when you look at it that way, of course, when you compare it to the rate of violent crime, or we compare it to the rate at which police officers are murdered, which is probably the best measure of the danger that they face, it's actually whites who are slightly disproportionately shot by police and not blacks. So I think there's a lot of theories about why that might be. I doubt it's because of racism, but so I basically review that, and then I review probably the best study of that matter by Roland Fryer, who looks at the details of specific shootings and does a big statistical study and basically confirms what those high-level statistics show.
Zach, I think it's important to point out that Roland Fryer happens to be black. That ought not matter in the real world, but happens to be black. He's a professor of economics at Harvard and grew up in the hood. And he did a study, as you point out in your paper, where he assumed he was going to corroborate the idea that the police were engaging in systemic racism against blacks, more likely to shoot and kill blacks just because they were black. He was shocked that his findings showed the opposite. He got rid of his entire research team, hired a new research team. Bad news, same results.
Yeah, and what? And
Like you said, a clean house, bad news. You still get the same results. Like I don't understand. Like to me, it's mind blowing that how the black community is now. It's nothing like it used to be. Nothing. But I'm watching it now. When people see that now you have the actual footage. You see somebody literally breaking the law. The cop will ask you, like one day I was watching a video with the guy got pulled over by the cops. The cop pulled him over, right? Talking to him so nicely. He's like, he asked, why'd you pull me over, officer? He said, because you didn't have your seatbelt on. Then he was like, oh, I didn't have my seatbelt on. I had it on and I don't wear it over me. So the officer said, well, you wear it improperly. Can I see a license registration, please? He even said, please. He was like, you have no right to be stopping me. Who are you? Then he was like, I shouldn't be talking to you. So who else is supposed to pull you over when you're breaking the law? The officer was like, you know what, sir? Can you please step out the car? He rolled his window almost halfway up. He didn't want to step out the car. Officer put his hands on. So the officer is thinking like, what? I'm talking to you so nicely, and you still refuse to do what I say. You know what he did? He peeled off. Like, I don't understand. Like, what in your mind makes you think that the officer is not going to chase you after he talked you nicely? You didn't obey anything he said, and you peel off. What are you supposed to do then? If you just hand your license, registration, if you had If you had suspended license, you know that's a ticket. Or you had warrants out, you know what time it is. If your record is clean, you have nothing on your license, you have nothing to worry about. I got pulled over when was I 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, officer pulled me over. He said, he couldn't really see my registration on my truck. So he said, he's like, okay. He pulled me over. He said, I thought you didn't have the registration on your truck. I said, no. He's like, then he was like, I apologize, sir. You have a good day. I have no attitude. That's it. Have a good day. How easy is that? Man, y'all gotta stop, man, for real.
And his research really confirms the high level statistics, so the amazing thing about this is, I really looked to see if there was any studies that contradicted or cast doubt on Roland Fryer's research and what the high level statistics showed. And I couldn't find a single, properly designed study that cast any doubt on it. So this is really like a very one-sided story from academic point of view. When you look at those statistics and you look at the studies available, it's really hard to find anything on the other side.
And Zach, this has real world consequences as you talk about the numbers of homicides in some cities and the numbers of homicides in general that would not have occurred but for this notion of the police engaging in systemic racism that's causing the cops to pull back and to no longer engage in proactive policing. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's impossible to pinpoint the exact increase in homicides because there's no way to say, well, this homicide is a result of police pullback, and this one isn't. But basically what Roland Fryer did and a number of other studies have looked at is like, what is the timing here? So we can look at cities that had like a big BLM protests, Black Lives Matter protests, and that caught national attention. And we can compare those to cities that didn't have that kind of big kinds of protests and see what the murder rates do in those cities and see what the violent crime rates do in those cities. And because those protests happened in different cities at different times, that also helps to isolate the effect specifically of those protests as opposed to long-term ongoing trends in crime nationally or even regionally. And what they discovered is when Roland Fryer did it, for instance, he looked at 5 cities that did have these kinds of protests and compared it to about 20 cities that did not. And he found that in just those 5 cities, there was somewhere in the neighborhood of 900 excess murders,
wow.
just over a 2-year period. So when you extrapolate those results out to cities all across America that have now experienced these kinds of protests and pulled back in policing, and you extrapolate it out to other time periods, not just those 2 years, you're looking at probably tens of thousands of people murdered. But I'm not aware of any study that's tried to estimate the total impact of these kinds of protests, and particularly the falsehoods that are promulgated in these protests. I'm not sure of any study that's tried to evaluate the overall murder impact. So it's sort of a guessing game.
Right.
But at the very lowest, we're talking about a couple thousand murders, people dead who wouldn't otherwise be dead, and it's just astounding, the impact. And it could easily be tens of thousands.
And
I honestly think, right, also Black Lives Matter stuff, which I haven't really seen the co-founders of Black Lives Matter out there like that, but the movement is so-called still moving on. But I think we actually, instead of correcting the incidents that happen and telling the young black man, when the cops pull over, do what he says. And if you do what he says and something still happens to you, that's a total different ball game. But when the officer tells you what to do and you disobey all his orders and you still want to be ignorant and do what you do, and then the cops chase you and it goes left, that's not the cops' fault. That's your fault. That was your responsibility. These protesters need to stop because we are condoning in these bad behaviors, and it keeps happening over and over and over. Like I was telling you guys about the guy that was in the car. You should see his attitude. His attitude was nasty. I can't say the cop came up and talked to him in a very mean or disrespectful way. The cop came up nicely. Hey, how you doing? This, that, and turn. Very nicely. So there's no reason. People are just ignorant, and we are just, I won't say we, because I sure ain't. I'm not no Black Lives Matter protester. I don't believe in that. I believe in what it stands for, but not for what they're making it to be now. Because that's not Black Lives Matter. I'm not going to condone people's bad behaviors and get rewarded for it. When I'm black and I get pulled over by white cops, not that often, but when I do, they're nice as hell. I don't understand. So I'm not going to condone that nonsense. I'd rather they correct them, let them know what they're doing wrong, let the cops try to pull you over. Don't take them on a high-speed chase, doing 100 miles an hour. Let's be real, man. Come on.
Zach, the police are where the crime is. And it's a fact that a young black man is 8 times more likely to be murdered than a young white man. And almost always the murderer is another young black man. The number one cause of preventable death for young white men is accidents, like drownings or car accidents. Zach, the number one cause of death, preventable or not, for young black men is homicide. And again, almost always at the hands of another young black man. That's why the cops are there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these are communities that need protection. They are vulnerable to violent criminals. And it's just amazing to me that people are saying.
And as you point out, the police kill more unarmed whites every year than unarmed blacks. Yet you talk about a survey that was done among people who describe themselves as very liberal. And among the very liberal people, more than half of them believe the police kill over 1,000 unarmed black men every year. And I believe in a recent year, the number was something like 4. And about 8% of the very liberal, self-described very liberal people believe that the police kill 10,000 unarmed blacks every year.
Yeah. And so you can understand, if you believed those things, if you believed police were killing 10,000 unarmed blacks every year, then the Black Lives Matter movement and the claims they're making would make a lot more sense, right? So it actually makes it a little bit more understandable when you realize just how radically uninformed people are, or disinformed is probably actually the better word. But then
this is the time when we have the internet at the palm of our hands. We could do the research ourselves. They just listen to whatever somebody says that they're following. Like, take a couple minutes out and go on your phone, do a little research, take you a few minutes, and do that yourself. Nope, they get all angry. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I understand this was like in the late 90s, early 2000s, when the internet, when you had to go on the computer at home, and you had to plug up the phone. Like, I understand for those days. But we're in the age where the computer is right in your hand. Research is one click away. So come on, man. It's just ignorance at this point.
And that just leads you to the question of, like, how have we totally failed to communicate the most rudimentary facts about policing and racial violence to our populace, and especially to one side of our populace. And so that sort of leads you to the question of, well, what's going on in these media institutions? And actually,
hope you enjoyed that short video. Now to watch the full video, just click on the link below and watch it on Epic TV. It only costs $1 a month to sign up, and you'll get unlimited access to all the great exclusive content on the platform. Now, as you know, this show is now exclusively on Epic TV. So by signing up for just $1 a month, you're supporting me and my team to keep it going. I promise you'll not be disappointed. Thank you, and God bless.
Larry Elder, the scientist, shuts down Black Lives Matter with basic facts and data. That's what I said. Data is right there on the phone. People just don't want to do the research and want to be lazy and have big outrage. Like, I don't see what's so complicated about doing what a police officer tells you what to do. Like, I don't understand that. You could do all of that and go home and enjoy the rest of your evening. Why you had to take it from this to this? Like, I can't comprehend that. It's just mind-blowing to me. Like the kid that ran the stop sign, when the cop tried to pull him over, he had ran the stop sign, he chose to speed home to the cops on a high-speed chase all the way to his house. He rushes out the car, runs into this house. The cops could proceed to chase him into the house, chasing him around in the house, tasing him. His mom was screaming and this, that, and third. People in the comments saying, oh, the shit, I never went in this house. What you mean? They're in pursuit now. You took a simple traffic violation into a high-speed chase. You just turned into a felon now. To a felony. You just turned a regular simple traffic stop into a felony. What do you think? The cop's supposed to stop as soon as you enter the house? This is not a video game. This is real life, people. We gotta wake up, man. We gotta wake up. Some making excuses. Teach these young black men the right way. When a cop pull you over, there's nothing wrong. They're law enforcement. That's what they're there for. But when something happens to you or your family member, who do you call? The cops. Like I just saw some young rapper that died from Louisiana again. I think he was like 23, 24 years old. I guess so, he died. Another black man. Gang rival, gang, whatever. And they had the nerve to even go to the hospital where he was at. I had shootouts in the parking lot of a hospital. Like, when is it going to stop? Where's Black Lives Matter protesting for that? The innocent, it is a hospital. Where's Black Lives Matter? Like I said, man, the shenanigans is stupid. And then I had another incident with the lady. I hate to keep ranting. There's so many stories going on right now, but I'm going to leave it with this one. I have kids. This lady has kids. Some guy was shooting in the apartment complex. Almost shot her and her kids. She called the cops. The cops came, tried to negotiate. He wouldn't come out. They called his dad. His dad tried to negotiate with him. He won't come out the house. Probably he had to been high on something. So they're calling the SWAT team. The SWAT team took him out. Black Lives Matter protesters outside the house. They're going crazy. Said they didn't have to kill him. She didn't have to call the police. What you mean she didn't have to call the police? He shot through her apartment. If it was me, I was calling the police. I'm a civilian. I have kids. I'm a father. I'm a working father. I don't have time for this. When you could have killed one of my kids, and she's telling them my kids were in the house. They didn't care. Something got to stop. Something got to go, man. We got to stop this nonsense. We got to stop this. Obviously, the guy wasn't in his right mind. He could have killed people in those apartment complexes. He was just shooting recklessly. He didn't care. So why should she care? Give me guys think about this in the comments, man. Until then, I'm going to catch you guys next video, man. Peace out. Have a blessed day.